Three and a half weeks ago, a report came out from former Attorney General Holder talking about what we should do, about 13-page recommendations. We accepted all 47 of those recommendations. And now we're just trying to make sure it aligns with our overarching diversity and inclusion plan that we have in place, making sure that it aligns with the Holder plan, and making sure that makes more sense for the business and try to action on it as fast as we can.
Is there a theme about the recommendations? If you could boil it down to a couple of buckets, what was the thrust of what the Attorney General recommended for you guys?
Sure, it was greater oversight. It talked about our values. It talked about human resources being better resourced. It talked about D&I, what I like to call best practices or next practices, trying to be bleeding edge there. Our employee policies, but basically it's a starter guide for how to do everything right. And that's the roadmap we were going to follow.
You know, you guys, you just lost your CEO/founder, Travis Kalanick. I'm really surprised by one fact. He was resistant for a long time, according to media reports. He was resistant to releasing the data on diversity at Uber, but you just released it in March. And the data actually is much better than a lot of other companies out in California and Silicon Valley. I'm not going to ask why, because he's not here and he should explain his own reasoning. But how does that, as someone who's new to the company, when you saw what some of the data looked like, gender diversity was higher than most places, 8% or more African Americans on the team. What did you think about the data when you saw it?
I was surprised. I was happily surprised in some areas. Other areas, we have a lot of work to do, and so I just tried to make an honest assessment of what is it that we need to do. But I was happily surprised. Globally, we have 50% people of color, and I was really was over-indexing in some areas, but I was really surprised by that. I was really happy by our African American number at 8.8%, which is much higher than in the tech sector. But I realized there's still way more that we could be doing. To me, it was just sunshine's the best antiseptic. So it was just great to actually have the numbers, and now we can just dig into that, understand where we need to get prescriptive, and understand, where we're doing well, where we're not doing so well, and what actions to take next.
So what's tougher when we get to these conversations is because once you get past the big numbers on top, you start pulling things apart underneath. There are a few questions that are raised for me. One is the Asian American number is pretty high, right? So we've seen that when we're talking about minorities, we often lump people together, but the Asian American number is still pretty high. So that means we have to get more Black and Latino folks in there. And then what are the jobs that people are filling? So it's not just about the quantity, the number of people who are there, but also the quality of the roles they have, the leadership they have.
Well, I think right now at Uber is a very unique time where you have leadership positions all the way down to the bottom. And from the bottom to the top, there's a lot of positions open. I think that's what makes Uber really interesting. This is when organizations change. Most people say, entry level, who cares about that? I want leadership spots. We have leadership spots open. We have mid-management. We have spots across the organization wide open at this point. And we're looking at all these roles with diversity and inclusion lens on top of mind. And I always want to emphasize with people that even though we're a technology company, we're highly operationalized. So we need people from different vocations. We need people who are lawyers, accountants, different types of technicians, all different types of people. So I always want people to think there is a place at Uber for you, and don't just think, if I'm not an engineer, there's no spot for me. So when we're looking at it, we're trying to basically make sure that, one, we hire top quality people, and then we go all over the earth trying to find it. And that's the major impetus of what we're doing right now. We just embarked on a College 2.0 tour where we went to historically black colleges, universities, Hispanic serving institutions, and women's liberal arts colleges. And what was neat about that was we actually reached out just to freshmen and sophomores. So for recruitment purposes, you go, well, why would you do that? We're just trying to create a relationship. And we're going to go back in the fall, and those rising sophomores and juniors, we hope that they will then intern with us, and we can become the employer of choice in the future for them. So actually staying with those candidates and then intern to employ and understanding Uber's a great place, and then the word of mouth you expect to permeate out. So it's a long-term strategy, but I think that's the best strategy.